Democrats have announced that they're going to broaden their impeachment inquiry into 45's corruption. Coming from Washington, D.C., House Democrats returned to Washington this week, poised to significantly broaden their nascent impeachment inquiry into 45 beyond the findings of the Russian investigation, but they will confront a fast dwindling political clock. Undeterred by lackluster public support for impeachment, Democratic lawmakers and aides have sketched out a robust 4-month itinerary of hearings and court arguments that they hope will provide the evidence they need to credibly portray 45 as corrupt and abusing his power, which he already has been doing. He's been abusing the power every weekend by golfing and using the taxpayers' money. Beyond the squatters' efforts to impede the special counsel's investigation, Democrats also plan to scrutinize his role in hush payments to 2 women who said they had affairs with him, and reports that he dangled pardons to officials willing to break the law to implement his immigration policies. Democrats also demand documents last week related to whether his resort properties illegally profited from government businesses. The central oversight perspective so far has been focused on the Mueller report, said Representative Jamie Raskin, a Democrat of Maryland and a former constitutional law professor who sits in the Judiciary Committee. They said we need to broaden out the oversight work to get a complete picture of the lawlessness of the administration. This is imperative for the fall season. Whether the Democrats' agenda will result in a House vote to impeach a squatter for only the 3rd time in American history remains the most significant unanswered question of 45's presidency, one that could shape his bid for re-election and his prospects of notching any additional legislative accomplishments in his first term. But even the most ardent supporters of impeachment conceded that time might already be short, with only around 40 days in session left before the end of the year, and a slew of issues on Capitol Hill that could sap additional time and energy. Congress must fund the government in the coming weeks, and lawmakers in both parties want meaningful legislative debates over 45's trade deal with Mexico and Canada, gun safety legislation, and bolstering election security. Most House Democrats now privately agree that 45's behavior clears the bar for an impeachment vote. Some reached a conclusion over the 6-week recess that just ended, but the politics of doing so are more complicated, and their leaders appear no closer to a decision on whether to proceed. The Judiciary Committee Chairman Representative Jared Nadler of New York has indicated that the panel will most likely determine later this year whether to advance impeachment articles, and aides have privately argued that they cannot wait much longer to leave enough time to vote and try a case in the Senate before the 2020 election more forcefully diverts attention. Speaker Nancy Pelosi remained skeptical, telling colleagues during a private call late last month that the public still isn't there in impeachment. Many of the caucus more moderate members whose districts are crucial to maintaining the Democrats' majority have not backed the impeachment either, and Republicans remain unified behind 45. Just as consequentially, court cases have hamstrung the Democrats' ability to stage potentially powerful public hearings, in part as a result of 45's stonewalling of congressional oversight rulings. Rulings in the 2 cases, one on unsealing grand jury secrets from Robert Mueller's the third's investigation, and the other to enforce a subpoena for the former White House counsel Donald McGahn, are expected this fall. They could determine whether lawmakers will be able to blunt the White House's attempts to run out the clock by slow-walking document production and ordering major witnesses not to appear before lawmakers without a court order. For now, the Democratic congressional investigations agreed that they should push ahead, even if impeachment ultimately remains beyond their grasp. If we weren't able to collect the evidence that we need to present a credible case before the election, well, at least maybe we have put enough evidence out there that the public can exercise another form of regime change that is in the Constitution and vote, said Representative Mary Gay Scanlon, who's a Pennsylvania Democrat on the committee. The Judiciary Committee will take a substantial step to organize its effort this week. Lawmakers are expected to vote to establish rules and procedures governing the inquiry including allowing staff lawyers to question witness and the squatters' lawyers to more formally offer a defense, according to an official familiar with the committee's plans. Democrats began examining the hush payments and other areas of scrutiny in the spring, requesting documents and taken other early steps, but they have focused mostly on Mueller's investigation and his account of 45's repeated attempts to thwart his team. Several high-profile witnesses were subpoenaed to appear before Congress in September to discuss potential obstruction acts, including 45's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, and Rob Porter, a one-time White House aide. But Democratic leaders are hoping that their review of 45's properties, the hush payments, and pardon dangling might resonate more with the public and allow lawmakers to sidestep the wall the White House has erected around witnesses related to Mueller's inquiry. Federal prosecutors in Manhattan investigated the payments to the pornographic film actress Stormy Daniels and to Karen McDougal, a former Playboy model, and charged 45's former personal lawyer Michael Cohen with violating campaign finance laws by arranging the payments. Though 45 was not named in the indictment, prosecutors referred to him as Individual 1 and said he directed the illegal payments. 45 has acknowledged the payments, insisting they were legal, which they were not, and he has denied the affairs, which he probably had them. By calling witnesses involved in the payments, Democrats believe they can make the case that 45 broke the law in his pursuit of the squattancy, even though prosecutors closed the investigation without additional charges. It is not clear whether prosecutors concluded that they were bound by the Justice Department's view that a sitting squatter cannot be indicted. By broadcasting the details of 45's repeated efforts to drive government businesses to his family's hotels, clubs, and resorts, Democrats hope they can convince the Americans that 45 is trying to profit off the presidency, which that's exactly what he's trying to do. A potential violation of the Constitution's emoluments clause, 45 has repeatedly rejected that accusation and turned over management of his company, the 45 organization, to his oldest sons and executive through a trust, although he is its sole beneficiary. Democrats have also framed 45's repeated offers to pardon aides willing to break the law to carry out his immigration policies as part of a pattern that also includes his efforts to impede 45's Mueller's investigators. The committee ordered Department of Homeland Security officials last week to hand over records related to the overtures, which 45 has denied and White House aides have said were jokes. Democrats are largely united in their approach to cast in 45 as abusing his power and plan to advance legislation to fight foreign election interference and misinformation campaigns, according to the Speaker's office. But their stance has only loosely papered over internal differences about any impeachment vote, and party leaders could be forced to confront a messier intra-party conflict in the coming months based on how they decide to proceed. Some of the House's most liberal lawmakers appear to be growing tired of the methodical pace laid out by leadership and prepared to argue more forcefully that allowing 45 to skirt punishment for his actions could free future squatters from congressional constraints on their powers. Representative Steve Cohen, a Democrat of Tennessee and senior member of the Judiciary Committee, said he spent August updating his own articles of impeachment, accusing the squatter of emoluments, violations, obstruction of justice, welcoming Russia's election interference, and unconstitutional attacks on the courts and the news media. I'm going to try to find out how many people are willing to stand up and vote for impeachment, he said. I understand the Speaker and the Chairman's attitude before wanting to bring out all this fruit. The proof is already there. The liberal advocacy groups had hoped to push the party during the August recess toward an impeachment vote by stirring up a groundswell of grassroots supports, but many moderate lawmakers opposed to impeachment emerged from August further convinced that their reticence was justified by voters' lack of interest in impeachment and that the squatter was best voted out of office instead of removed. That split may force impeachment advocates toward a compromise, with the Republican-controlled Senate highly likely to acquit 45 even if the House's case were put to trial. Some Democrats have begun raising another possibility that the Judiciary Committee could draft articles of impeachment, vote them out of the panel, but never bring them to the floor of the House. offering the public an election year indictment of sorts without ever bringing the squatter to trial. Yeah, but he's been trying to profit off the squatting since he started squatting in the White House. But yeah.